where are you going with copywriting? Let's have a heart-to-heart talk about your copywriting, your marketing, this freelance work that you're doing, and where you need to be in order to have success in 2022 or anytime you're listening to this program. I'm already getting worked up. I'm Justin Hitt from Ad Briefing's Copywriting Tips. Number one, if you want success as a copywriter, you have to understand that copywriting is only one part of running a business. Now, if you're just doing this as a freelancer, if you're just doing this as a hobby, that's okay too. However, you need to understand that if you're not growing in this business of copywriting, then you're going to get stuck behind. So let me tell you a little story. Back in the day, 1990s or so, I'm running a computer consultancy business. I'm discovering the power of copy to generate appointments, to generate leads. I was sending 500 letters out every week and just filling my calendar up with appointments and getting new computer consulting customers. So I was running a computer consulting business. I started subcontracting other contractors to come in to do work. And every month, 500 letters are going out, and I am just rocking it. Now, there were some mistakes that I made because I was so fixated on the copy. So I was marketing computer services. I had the right model in place. And by the way, to make money as a copywriter, you either need to be paid to write copy, as far as like building marketing campaigns and administrating marketing campaigns, or you need a high ticket product to sell. Now you can do both of those, but I had a high ticket product, which was my labor as a computer consultant. I had a couple people on staff that helped out with the computer software installation and computer installs in healthcare and other types of facilities. But the underlying point was I didn't understand the business. I didn't understand the elements of running a business, and while we were banking all these customers, I had the majority of my staff, I had 3 or 4 people on staff, stuffing envelopes every week so we could get these envelopes out. That took away from billable hours. I had administrative staff who thought it was more important to get the letters out than it was it's certainly more fun to get the letters out, but then it was to follow up on accounts that were slow pay. So I was getting customers, but I wasn't getting really good customers. And so I had to do some tuning there. And ultimately, while I enjoyed writing the copy, I couldn't keep writing new copy because I had an unlimited supply of new prospects to send the copy I already had. So I was using Dan Kennedy's magnetic marketing system, which essentially I had a list of prospects and I would send them a letter series, letter number 1, letter number 2, and letter number 3, all driving to an appointment around a particular type of computer installation, software updates, or network services. So there was it was like a big giant grid of letters. I had this, one of those mailing boxes, and it had the different letters in each column. And I know I had 4 different series going. And my staff found it very enjoyable to sit around the table. I would buy them dinner, and they'd get these 500 letters a week out. I did not know, because see, I'm a different person now. I've done larger campaigns. I didn't know at the time that I could just have a mailing house send the letters out. I could literally just give them a PDF file and an Excel spreadsheet of the prospects, and they would send it all out for me. But instead, I got my 5 staff people in the office, and we're having a good time, and it's a great social event, and I am driving a new business. But as the new business grew, and I had more and more accounts and more projects all over the Mid-Atlantic area, excuse me, I was in a pickle. I did not collect the money as fast as I needed to. I actually ran the business into the ground with solid marketing campaigns. Now, you might be saying, well, Justin, I thought marketing was the solution. It is the solution, but it's a solution that can create other problems. And in this case, I didn't understand the business of copywriting, the business of marketing, not selling that business, not selling that service, but selling products and solutions. So if you're writing for a client, you're not selling them copywriting. You're selling them new leads, new sales, the sale and products of their products and services. Your copywriting is incidental. because like I ran into, I could eventually just keep using the same campaign. As much as I love writing copy and doing presentations and stuff, it wasn't any good because I could go out, I could send a letter series for software installation, and I could do my software installation pitch. I could get new clients. And then once they were a client for software installation, I did Jay Abraham's Parthenon strategy. Once they were software customers and we got all the software up to date for their environment, I then invited them to maybe a 90-minute presentation where I had like a workshop where we talked about network installation and we talked about the importance of the right hardware for their environment. And then every time the government changed laws, I came up with a new presentation. But essentially, I didn't have to be creative because once I was creative, I could be profitable. I could be productive, actually sending out the campaigns. I know a lot of you folks have got that letter campaign that you could use to get new copywriting clients, but you haven't sent it out because you wrote the next new campaign and then the next one. And really, again, the business of copywriting is a systematic approach to putting your message in front of qualified prospects, getting them to raise their hand, getting them in an appointment, and then offering them some kind of ongoing package. If you're delivering that ongoing package, you're running into the same roller coaster income that I had, where I ended up with my technicians out in the field, they couldn't send out letters. And then if they couldn't send out letters, I didn't have enough appointments for the following week. If they were in appointments, they weren't going out and doing billable work. If they were doing billable work, they weren't in appointments. You've got to build a business. So where are we going with ad briefings? Ad briefings is about you going from a freelance copywriter, a freelance marketer, dabbling in the copywriting to becoming a pioneer in your own world, kind of, because it's going to be tough. You're going to go out and pioneer in places that you're not familiar with, but I've got you a map to take you from where you are to $1 million plus marketing agency. So now why do I say marketing agency and why $1 million? Well, first off, $1 million is the starting point because $1 million can net an owner about $100,000 a year. But really, what's $100,000 a year going to do for you? So if you can't taste the million, you won't be able to taste the 2 and 3 and 4 and 10 million that is required if you're going to have a stable long-term agency. So how do we get to that million? Well, first off, you've got to understand, and I just gave you a story about it, that you're not going to be able to do everything yourself. If you enjoy writing copy and you just want to be a freelance copywriter and you want to improve your copywriting skills, that's fine. But the shortcut is understanding the business of copywriting and marketing and establishing an agency where you have retainer clients that pay you every month. So I went from the computer consulting business. I had a bunch of customers that didn't pay. I had all these subcontractors out doing computer installs, doing network installations, doing software updates, doing custom software, doing database administration. I had all these people out there, but I wasn't collecting the money fast enough. Now, if you hire subcontractors, you got to pay them. If you have employees, you got to pay them. And if the money's going out to pay them and the money's not coming in on the new accounts, you're going to run into trouble. So long story short, I restructured my business and did only business development, and the high ticket product I sold was the subcontractors that I've had. There's a handful of them that I ended up selling for. And so I would do the marketing campaign. I would administer the marketing campaign. I learned about the value of mailing houses. I would help them with email marketing. I would help them with their websites. I would help them with their mailing campaigns. And I'm still a big proponent of mail campaigns in the mail. We also start doing events. So event marketing is a very powerful thing. But my job 100%, including my administrative staff, focusing on the business development of other organizations, that's a full-time job in of itself. And dispatching that client to go to do the service, that gives you an unlimited supply of people to do the service. So you're in the right place of being a marketer. You're in the right place of being a copywriter. But without the agency structure, you don't have a way of bringing in those customers. So what I ended up doing, I had 10 or 15 retainer clients. This is early 2000. I think they were paying between $1,500 a month and $3,500 a month. Now, is that a good number? Well, today it sucks. Today it's horrible because inflation. But back in the 2000 or so, it was okay. But again, what are you doing for these retainer clients? Well, I had a system in place to send out their prospecting letters, to send out their customer or prospect newsletter. And I partnered with mailing shops. And today that's easier than ever before. But I partnered with mailing shops so that the only thing we did in our agency, I didn't really call it an agency though, because we were consultants, but we called it a firm. But we would go and find, so for example, C Systems International, one of my areas that I can give you background on what we did. We created a sales sheet that was the focus of the organization. What are the key functions of this organization? And then from that sales sheet, we wrote, and I don't want to call them branding things because I wasn't really into like the colors or anything like that, but we had these customer avatars. We had a giant binder with copies of all the competitors' marketing. We would write letters to congressional people. We'd write letters to decision makers in the industry. We'd write letters to admirals and different, because we did a lot of military contracting. And we would make sure that the owner was at the right events and they had the right booth at the right trade show. And we basically mined a list of 1.2 million federal contracts. We mined this list. We narrowed it down to say like 1,000 prospects. And then we only sent or marketed to primary contractors with funding. Okay, so this is how specific we went. That was worth to that company. They went from $441,000 a year to $1.8 million in less than a 12-month period, and that is money received. They eventually got up to $22 million, and we can share that journey with you in another podcast. But my point being is that when I was trying to be everything to everyone and deliver the detailed services, it became overwhelming quickly. Now, it's not just for me. I've seen it happen for other people. When you try to be the copywriter, the secretary, the appointment scheduler, the webmaster, the database person, when you try to be all these things, usually nothing happens and you are stuck with mediocre results. Now, if you're not making $100,000 a year in the equivalent US dollars or 4 times the average earning of your area, I guarantee you that the inflation is killing you. I guarantee you that you suffer and worry at night about one client's cutting out. I know that you have collection problems because that is the natural state of things. If you don't have the administrative assistant, if you don't have the bookkeeper or the accountant, you will have other problems that we can help you fix. But again, you need an agency large enough. Because I know a lot of you folks are freelancers because you want to live pretty thin. But again, if you have an agency that's large enough to handle these administrative tasks, you can write more copy, you can do more deliverables for clients, you can start doing joint ventures and other projects that are more profitable, and you'll build the business quickly. Now, another thing you can do is if you have people, you can build a co-op. So you don't necessarily have to have your own agency. And when I say a marketing agency, $1 million agency, you don't have to have an office downtown. That's not required for $1 million agency. You could, work out of a spare bedroom at your house. You can still have the lifestyle elements that you do as a freelance copywriter. The difference is you actually have the financial standing in order to fund health insurance, vacation time, actually a nice home, high-speed internet. I see too many copywriters, marketers, business development professionals who are living like in this fantasy that they can do it all themselves. They say, well, I'm a great copywriter. I'm not a good manager of people. Well, then you need a business structure and processes to manage people. You know what? I can handle these projects. I only got 4 or 5 different projects going on right now. When I get 10 projects, I'll hire a project manager. No. You need a project manager right now to make sure those 5 projects are delivering on time, but then to start backfilling more projects because you don't want to be in the state where the 5th project fails or cancels. That happens. And then now you only got 4 projects, but you're working all 4 projects. So you don't really have time to get a 5th project again, but you really need a 5th project to get enough income to come in to pay all the bills. See how it works, folks? You need stability And stability comes with volume, but the volume must be of a quality that gets you your daily numbers. So we can talk about how to do this. If you have got questions, you can write in. We can talk about some of the positioning that's necessary. But in today's episode, I want to make sure you understand where we're going with this podcast. We're going from where you are today, freelance copywriter, freelance marketer, God forbid you're out there e-lancing, okay, to $1 million plus agency, whatever is equivalent for your country or your locale. So, because by the way, India, China, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, other countries other than the United States and England or the UK are getting into the freelance copywriting business, and they're getting better and better at it. That's why when you go to these job boards and you're competing for jobs and you're going for the Elance or the Odesk or whatever platforms out there these days, you're overwhelmed by so many other low ball bidders, is because copywriting is a global service. Now the good news is that you can work specifically in a niche. You can hire copywriters to build your drafts out or to do research for you. I've had teams in India, the Philippines, Czech Republic doing research for me that I would then write the copy, or I'd write the special report, or I'd write the technical document. Because by the way, I actually write technical documents, case studies, special reports. I write things other than just sales letters. Now, you might focus just on sales letters for a specific industry. That's great. But do you have the support system to make sure you're consistently and almost automatically bringing in that income? Now, we can also talk about passive income with licensing and royalties. I have put together kits for electrical contractors. I've put together kits for biodiesel sales and petroleum sales, fleet lock sales, and I've sold those kits to other selling professionals, which they then used. My computer consulting materials, I sold that as a package kit. I didn't sell a whole lot of them, but basically I had a letter series for computer repair. I had a letter series for network installation. I had a series for systems administration, and I ended up selling those packages, and they were licensed out. Now, today is a little different than in the 90s. You do need to know about SEO, internet, direct to mail, postcards, text broadcasts, video platform. There's a lot of things to know. And that further reinforces what I'm trying to help you understand, is that you cannot and should not do this by yourself. I was talking with somebody today who has a small marketing agency, and he's doing SEO, videography, photography, and other types of multimedia for political campaigns. And we were talking about how these clients really don't know what they're doing. They don't have talking sheets or talking points as far as the political concern is. They're not worried about fundraising on the local level. And he's managing their social media accounts. I said, well, look, if you're managing social media accounts, how much time does that take you? And it can take him most of the week to manage his clients' social media. I said, well, what about your videography stuff? Because he was out on site doing a shoot, and it can be out on site for 5 or 10 hours a day. I don't know how he's building his business, because he's doing the work. So if you're doing the copywriting, if you're doing the marketing, if you're managing client SEO, if you're managing client social media accounts, how are you going to consistently drive new business into your agency, or even into what you're doing? How are you going to build it up to get even larger accounts so that you can have a little bit of flexibility and growth? And again, it's about going for the $1 million agency. Drive out $1 million. You're going to have 2 or 3 people on staff. I'm not talking about setting up an office downtown. I'm not talking about hiring a big team. In fact, you can have a $1 million agency in a virtual style environment. I've helped clients do it before. I've done it for myself. Now, I did transition from the $1 million. So let's look at your future right now. So you've got a $1 million agency. You're making 6 figures. There will be parts about running an agency that you won't like. And so in my case, I transitioned to a small handful of private clients, usually 1 or 2 private clients. And then I did information publishing and the newsletters that you're experiencing right now. That's what worked for me because I was getting a little tired of all the traveling. And then when 9/11 happened, traveling became such a pain. Now today we can do video conferencing. It's not so bad. I don't really have to travel and I can work with people around the world. But again, I had to make that transition. And I also found other retainer services that pay much more than the $100,000 I was netting having a large team. So today I only hire as needed administrative support, bookkeeping or CPA services, and then copywriters, researchers. I'm about to hire an editor to clean up some stuff for me. So my core business is just me and an assistant. And then I add other people as I need to because I have 3 or 4 core clients that pretty much pay out a 100% billable schedule. Now, again, this is not a perfect model that I've transitioned to after being $1 million agency because I can have a client disappear. And if you only have 3 clients and 1 disappears, that's 1/3 of your income. So what I would recommend is once you start moving towards the systems you need to have that $1 million agency is that you have that hard search with yourself. So let's say it's 3 to 6 months down the line, you start having a consistent and systematic approach to getting new clients. You've got a full book of appointments. Once you close deals, you have people who are doing that work for you, or at least they're following the process that you've designated. If you were to get sick or need to take a holiday or there's a COVID thing, that you'd still have income coming in, and boom, now you're the $1 million agency. Let's say it's 9 to 12 months out. I want you to then think, where do I want this to go? I would prefer you drive it out to a $10 million agency. But again, there's going to be certain things in that's personal preference. And there might be some areas that you still enjoy doing, because I'm not saying you should do nothing. I'm just saying that you need to focus on creating and keeping profitable customers and the marketing of the copywriting services, whether you do the work or not. And ultimately, you should end up with 3 to 5 people you can call on. And by the way, when I'm working with one of these large clients and someone contacts me and wants me to write a sales letter and they offer $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 to write the sales letter, lead generation pieces, email campaigns, all that, I very often refer that to a trusted partner. I don't do that work myself, nor do I accept the work directly if it's not something I'm going to be able to service over time. So there are still the flexibility of the personal preferences, even after you have a larger agency, but now you have the flexibility and breathing room to actually benefit and grow your bottom line. So again, that's where we're going. $1 million agency. Rather than chasing and fighting and bidding on a bunch of contracts, you've positioned yourself in the marketplace. You have a system to reach out directly to prospects. You could be using the Dream 100 system. You could be using the Recycle Your Marketing system. You can use Dan Kennedy's magnetic marketing. You can use Jeff Walker's product launch formula. You can use all of these things as plug and play connections inside of a system that's paying you out every month. I know some of you guys, I don't share your personal story, but I kind of, have a theme. I see the themes going on here. And I know some of you guys it's hit and miss. This month you might be at 5K. Next month you might be at 20K. The following month you might be at 0. Now, again, whatever your local currency is, find out what the average person earns. You want to be earning 3 to 4 times that net in your business. So if you got $1 million agency, you're still only netting out $100,000 a year. And again, you can do this with 2 or 3 people. You don't need a big office downtown. You can do this virtually if you want to. You can still have the flexibility of working from anywhere. It's just the systems in place need to be there to take care of your marketing, your administration, your bookkeeping, and making sure deliverables are going out the door in a timely manner. Now, I know this has been kind of an extended episode of the Ad Briefings Copywriting Tips, but if any questions have come up, if you see this path that we're talking about here, the $1 million agency, and you want specific questions answered, you visit www.adbriefings.co.uk. Again, you don't need a downtown office in London. You don't need an office in Singapore or any other major city. You can still do this virtually. You can still write from the beach. But the structure is what gives you consistent and countable income. Income that you can count on. That way, full health insurance. That way, fully funded retirement account. That way, if you need some coverage during a holiday season because you'd like to spend some time with family, you can do it. You still might be working like you've got 2 jobs, but again, you'll have the flexibility, you'll have the choice. That's where we're going in ad briefings. And I just want to leave you with one last thing. So I told you how you can ask questions. If you do not avail yourself of asking questions and you simply just go to the next episode, then it's okay to stay as a freelance copywriter. Just understand that when we bring on people from India and they start getting experience, we bring on people from the Philippines and they start getting experience, and we bring people from the middle of the United States where they can earn less money and they can still have a very good quality of living, that you're going to struggle because it's going to get harder and harder. Plus inflation, that $1 million, by the way, really should be $2.3 million, maybe $5 million. But again, we got to start you somewhere. If you're not willing to ask a question for free, to raise your hand after listening to this podcast and just let me help you get that problem off your plate and out of the way. Now, maybe you don't have a specific question. Share your comments. Share some encouragement for someone else. If you've got this where you can leave comments below, leave the comments, but just understand that we've got a system in place to syndicate this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. There's a god-awful number of places this will be. And if you're wandering around confused, without direction, visit www.adbriefings.co.uk and go to the contact page and just let me know where you are. Maybe you're the freelancer that's chasing jobs. Maybe you already have $1 million agency and now you're at that transition point where it's not quite what you want it to be. How do we get it to where it needs to be? And let's get you results in 2022. Now, again, I record this once and you can listen. It might be 2050 when you're listening to this. This still works. I've been doing this since 1996 with these podcasts. I think 2008, I bought the Ad Briefings copywriting site. You get results by the measure of your action, and as little as asking a question can get you turned around to where you need to be going, oriented on the path of your success, and I look forward to seeing you there.